Now, the first anime of the year, at least for me, is Delicious in Dungeons. It's one of those animes they actually heard about in back like a year ago that were announcing this, adapting this specific manga to an anime, and the subject matter of that manga sounds so interesting that I kind of wanted to read the manga, but I never have time for it. But besides that, when I actually watched the first episode, I completely regretted not reading the manga because how fascinating this anime really is, because when you go to the genre of fantasy of Dungeons and Dragons sort of territory, usually it's just all action or sometimes all politics. That depends which direction they want to go into. But there are subcategories they sort of not enough people go into to explore. Like this one, Delicious in Dungeons, go in specifically what that sort of monster tastes like, but not a very weird way. But at the same time, they do point out it's sort of weird for a reason and for not. Now, of course, this is the first time on my channel. My name is Retro. I honestly love animation. Of course, I do reviews, first impressions, and character breakdown, and sometimes cartoon theories or cartoon news if I have some time. Of course, if you like where this is going, it'd be really helpful if you put a like, comment, and subscribe. At least one of those things because it really helps my channel become bigger and better. Because let's face it, I'm a small channel with around 800 subscribers. Hopefully, I pass that to 1,000 subscribers in this year. At least that's sort of my goal, my delusion. But other than that, let's get started about the first episode of The Legends and Dungeons. Now, this anime is one of those a surprise because I wasn't sure when expecting. Of course, I did say I understand what I was getting, but I didn't know which direction it was going because you follow this sort of main party who is basically on their bad luck. They're kind of running the food, supplies, the metal, and people. And one of their main leads' sister got eaten by a dragon. And Leon, our main lead, sort of desperate to come back to the dungeon to save her sister. At least this one I assume because I don't know if she's just a sister religiously or a sister. So that's sort of kind of vague there, but at least we have a goal to go into. But you find out being a adventurer, specifically a dungeon adventure, is expensive. And this is the point where I mean sort of realistic. Because honestly, if you have a job to risk yourself looking for treasure or looking for very specific artifacts in a dungeon or lost a city or dungeon, whatever you want to call it, they will be expensive that you don't expect. And this one, the first couple of minutes kind of blew my mind how realistic it really is, because usually in sort of territories like Dungeons and Dragons, they never really go that deep, only for a video game or a kind of like a play around sort of role playing outwards. And this is I think the first time in a show they really break down the things they need to survive, especially if you're not the best of adventurers, because Leon sort of it wants to go save his sister, but it's sort of obvious you need money to spend to get inside the dungeons. And the only problem is they don't have enough. They spend everything, they don't have nothing. All his allies or his co-workers quit because they have better pay somewhere else. And now he's trying to figure out how can we save her? Can we save her because she's eaten by a dragon? Can we basically bring her back to life with magic now? Works. And I love that they sort of have a small discussion of, yeah, I mean, you can because a dragon doesn't really burn a person or animal that fast. We have a time limit, or we can rear or bring her back as poop, I guess, after she being done digestedly. It's sort of a weird conversation, but at the same time, it sort of makes sense. But I love that that sort of pattern of thinking goes to we can eat monsters to survive because we don't have enough money. And yeah, that actually makes sense because during this conversation of the team party of three, explaining we could sell our equipment and buy cheaper things like food or not, but which kind of armor we buy, because we buy cheaper armor, more danger it is, or we just separate, just let one person to rescue the sister because we don't have enough money or enough experience to actually go into it. And I love that sort of a conversation because it gives it more realistic because I feel this kind of conversation will happen if this was sort of a real thing. People arguing what we should buy, what we should sell, what we should not do. And I love it that sort of fall into how about food? I mean, the dungeon has an ecosystem. We can eat all the monster there. It sort of makes sense. But I love it. Some of the party members sort of were reserved about that. Like, you really want to eat something magical, but you don't know it can actually curse you or poison you. This feels more like a risk, and also kind of feels kind of disgusting. You see those sort of monsters reappearing, attempting to kill you. You're like, yeah, I want to eat that when it eats me. Like, no, like I love it that sort of process of sort of in denial at first, but little by little there be, I guess we need to do this to save the sister or not. But I love it that sort of all the other adventurers just look at them, they start to eat monsters like who are those weirdos doing? Why are they doing this? But I love it they do explain they catch a specific monster, explain this sort of what the body parts or how to kill it and how to cook it. And that's sort of kind of interesting because they just don't know how to at first. Especially our main lead Leon, that he has this sort of rusted book that is sort of kind of used over 100 times because Leon sort of read the book so many times because something in the top of his head always like what did they actually taste like, that sort of interesting. Yeah, this is the point where I made at the very beginning of the review that, yeah, that's sort of weird. They point out that it feels sort of weird. Why you want to taste something they want to eat you back? But at the same time, yeah, it's sort of kind of normal in the adventurer group. Kind of only a few adventurers would dare to eat other monsters. But at the same time, it feels more efficient. But it's sort of how slowly it builds how they meet other people who does the same thing, eating other monsters, but also giving good pointers what how to kill it, how to cook it, and trying not to waste time by doing that because if you do it wrong, you can easily get food poisoning or something worse, cursed. Yeah, I love that sort of kind of process of thinking outside of the box of how this tastes like, how you're supposed to cook it, and what ingredients you need. Because they do question the ingredients, like where you get sort of the specific taste of tree branch, but at the same time we get this tree branch in a funeral home or a graveyard. Because they're in the anime, at least the first episode, they were in a graveyard that everybody hangs out because it's probably the most safest place ever. And one of the Avengers rip off a tree branch growing inside a a graveyard, in other words. And you question like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna put that in my food. Like, it's weird. It's the same time, yeah. If I was the same position on them, I probably question it, but still do it because I want to save my sister. Like, yeah, that's the thing. That's sort of realistic kind of conversation, realistic situation in how to actually do it. Even the other adventurers looked at them sort of odd, like, what are they doing? You think that's a good idea? Yeah, I love that sort of expression, that sort of thinking what is the best decision. Of course, this anime first episode, they have to say it was good, but at the same time, I feel it was sort of kind of slow paced because this first episode was sort of divided by two episodes, pretend to be one full episode. Like each single 10 minutes feels like a mini episode explaining how to hunt down, what the best way to take down, rip it apart, cook it, and sort of decides how to actually do this monster downwards. But also kind of pushing the story that we can't stop moving. We have to keep moving because we have to save the sister. But I wish they put more emphasis of at least a little bit more like they have to save her before the due date her body will burn to death by the dragon. But at the same time they have to eat and figure out what to do next. It's one of those that is sort of between wholesome and very interesting experimental of cooking of monsters. It's a weird thing that I want to recommend, but at the same time I do have to mention the series is sort of wholesome. If I mean wholesome, that could be boring to some people, but I still recommend it. It's good, but at the same time I'm 100% sure we probably have maybe one season. I could be wrong. It could be something completely left field. They're grading in season two, but I highly doubt it because of how slow paced and interesting and what is the right decision that makes this anime so intriguing because you don't know what is the next monster they have to face and how they gotta eat it and also get to the goal because they don't have a pressure to go to save the sister because they're sort of like a running gag. We're trying to save her, but at the same time, it's not like a rush because if we do rush it, we die. That's why we have a sort of kind of chill, relaxed sort of episode because this is still the first episode. I mean, the series is not out, but I still sort of recommend it. How enjoyable it is, how interesting because everything you think this idea could be is done so well. It just sort of the pacing, you feel they divided it two episodes of 10 minutes each and pretend to be one episode that you do notice. And I think that's the only complaint I have. They have to figure out a way to make it more smoother to translation to the next scene while feeling like 10-minute episodes. And that's just the only complaint I have. But yet, yeah, it's sort of interesting how they argue, conversate of the things they need to survive. It's just interesting. But other than that, you've seen this first episode, specifically on Netflix. They have it in Netflix if you want to see it. It's just the first episode. Next week, the next episode, I don't know if I gotta review it, but it's one of those that I still recommend. I got nothing else to say, just thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and have a wonderful day. Bye.